Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Dr. Mo Show. Today, I'm chatting with Angus Nelson, who has a bit of a different take on confidence. Um, Definitely a chicken and the egg discussion. So I want to hear from you. People
hmm
show up, we want to take courses, we want to do everything. We want everything to be perfect before we show up because then that will make me confident. What's the difference between being prepared, being confident, and what do you do with that in your work?
Well, I think those are two different conversations. Being prepared makes you confident in your ability, whereas the context of confidence that I speak to most is doing something new. We think we need confidence before we step into a new opportunity, or in your metaphor, step into a presentation. But if you've never given a presentation before, particularly on that topic, why do you think you can be confident? You can't be confident in anything that you haven't already done. Confidence only lives in the past. It cannot live in the future. And so we have to detangle ourselves from performance. We have to decouple ourselves from outcome and take ourselves into the present of who we actually are. It's the only way to really have confidence. Confidence is in being. And if you fall on your face, if you make a mistake, if things go sideways, you know in and of yourself, you're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. But where most people get into the problems is when they have a belief system that is causing them to either procrastinate, they have fear of failure, they have imposter syndrome, and they tell themselves, if I was only more confident, then I'll take action. But it's an impossibility, and therefore this becomes a self-sabotaging belief that I must be confident before I can do a thing because it's impossible.
Well, that's groundbreaking because growing up in the medical field, being educated as a physician, little things like that. It's very small and it's a truth nugget right there. I cannot be confident until I'm confident, until I've done the thing.
Mhm.
But if I show up, that's how it's a stepping stone, I guess, more than anything.
Imagine the first time Elon Musk threw a rocket up in the air. Did he know it was going to work? He hoped it would work, and it blew up. And he looked like he had egg on his face. Oh, look there, Elon Musk thinks he can do stuff with rockets. What a fool. He had to take all that criticism. You look at someone like Oprah Winfrey. She's going to start her own network. Are you kidding me? Her own television network? Like years ago, she was just doing newscasts. This is crazy. And she had to face all that criticism. Like every one of these great people we think of did what they did with the unprecedented concept. They were not confident. They took a chance. They bet on themselves. They had a belief that they had a good idea, and now they're going to test it and put it out into the market. And that's where most people fail, is they never even try. And how can you actually grow? How can you stretch? How can you expand into who you are and what you're meant for on this earth until you at least step out on that first step? Taking a chance, betting on yourself. And so there's all these people who want to become, let's say, an entrepreneur, but they stay locked into a 9 to 5 job with golden handcuffs, believing they can never get there, even though they'll talk about it all the time. I'm in a Facebook group that talks about moving to Portugal, where I live, Lisbon, Portugal. And there's like 45,000 people in this Facebook group. In this country, there's less than 8,000 Americans total, and most of them are retirees. Of the 45,000 that are in the Facebook group, a very, very small percentage will actually take the action and do the steps necessary to get here. And it's a metaphor for all these areas of our life where people will talk a big game, but they actually won't take the action necessary to fulfill the dream. And so we stay in this state of flux. And what happens is it ends up chipping away at your belief in self. Well, why should I even try? Well, it didn't work for me last time. It's not going to work for this time. So I was probably just never going to do it again. And we talk ourselves out of possibility. And in my book, which is called Confidence Comes Later, is this whole precept, this concept, is that until you take action, you can never become. Confidence is the thing that happens after you've seen what you're made of, finding your grit, seeing your perseverance, recognizing and witnessing your own magic. And this is the thing people are afraid of. They're afraid of their greatness, they're afraid of their light. And so, my whole mission is to help set people free.
I love that. I need more. I need more people to see that. There's a twofold. I have a two-sided example to this because I tried multiple times to get into coaching full on.
Mm-hmm.
Unsuccessfully, of course, because guess what? I wasn't great at it
Mm-hmm.
until I was.
Yeah.
And in this process, because I do help healthcare providers kind of move from a traditional, exactly what you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Facebook groups of non-traditional career hunters where people want to go. I have a very, very close colleague who she's actually in this space and was my mentor for being in remote care.
Mm-hmm.
And when things are getting hard, she actually just told me she got another 9 to 5. It's still remote, but she got another 9 to 5, and my soul cried just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because that's the safe place to go back. But it's the rocket fuel. You need to get through the atmosphere. You need to just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
The world needs what we have.
Yeah. And there's a term called resistance. And it's that thing that comes against us the moment we try to step out and do something new. You're like, oh, I'm going to become more financially sound. I want to start being a saver. I'm always spending my money. So I'm going to start saving money. And coincidentally, that's the time your engine decides to melt down in your car. And you're like, oh, I got to get it fixed. I was just trying to move forward. I'm just trying to get ahead. Why does this happen to me? Or like your friend, they want to, do something new and be an entrepreneur. And then the moment they feel that pressure or that pain or the mockery, maybe from a distant friend, and they're like, oh, I'm not comfortable, then all of a sudden the resistance rises, right? And resistance will challenge you, and you'll want to, from just your immediate response, to go back to where you came. But resistance is actually the universe giving you an invitation saying, hey, want to flex that new muscle? Want to continue to believe what you say you believe? Come and show the world who you really are. We perceive that the resistance is something to tell us to go back, but the resistance is actually an invitation to go beyond. And you can follow it through narratives of story, whether you go to the Old Testament and you find the guys who are looking at the promised land. Some came back and said, it's full of giants. We're going to get crushed. No way. But there were two dudes who were like, hey, we can take it. Let's go. God brought us this far. He'll take us the rest of the way. And they were like, no, we don't know about that. And that was thousands of years ago, told in this book. And it's been happening ever since. And so I look at my family moving to Portugal as kind of like our own, opportunity where so many things went wrong. So many opportunities for us to tuck tail and head back. And we still at the time had our house. We could go back. We were renting it out. So we could just move back in and escort the Airbnb people somewhere else. Like we could have done it. And yet we said, no, we got to keep going. In the same way as an entrepreneur, you have opportunities to quit when things get hard, when the market changes, the economy starts to shift. And what I know to be true is that everything can be figured out. Everything can be sorted. Everything can find a solution if you have eyes to look for it. And so when those moments come where you feel all the scarcity, when you feel all the fear, when you feel all the imposter syndrome, rather than let it signal to you that you don't belong, that you're not enough, you're not worthy, you don't deserve, instead see it as an invitation to a graduation, that everything you've done up until this point has been preparation. It's been the tuition you paid, and today's your day to step beyond, to step into the graduation that this resistance is introducing to you.
Graduation sends you into the real world. There's no more school. If we
Mm-hmm.
keep along with that, when you're in school, I was talking to someone about this in medicine today. When you're in school, they tell you, you take this course, you take this course, and then you graduate, and then you take this
Mhm.
test. When you are an entrepreneur, it's like playing a linear video game versus an open world video game. You're in an open
Mhm.
world. You're no longer in that safe space, which it wasn't really safe anyway. I mean, it's still real life. And it's scary. It's scary beyond somebody explaining, which is why we all have coaches, because I
Mhm.
need someone to make this open world game back to a linear game so I can at least have a road and at least be able to find the treasure with a little bit of guidance. But that's a fantastic viewpoint when you hit a stumbling block. And I'm going to shift this into health because I know we did talk recently, and since then, gee, kind of a lot's changed since then. Uh,
Mhm.
I've gotten a diagnosis of coronary artery disease.
Mhm.
And for and it's funny because if you're my client or if you're my patient, you know it has been a very difficult journey for me to want to change my food quality.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier right now. I'll tell you
Yep.
that. And but I'm thinking about the invitations we get. Because a lot of my
Mhm.
patients, a lot of my clients from the health perspective, I'm going to shift this because this is something that it's I can feel it, that I want to hear your opinion when someone is making themselves healthier, right?
Mhm.
Within moments of those choices, someone's coming up offering you French fries, guaranteed. And
Mhm.
it's the same principle.
Yeah.
It's the exact same principle. Hey, you want to flex that muscle? Because now's the time. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you said you want something more linear. Nothing in the world is linear. That's being a control freak.
Oh,
That's perfectionism. That's procrastination. And so we want to wrestle the ambiguity and the uncertainty into some kind of a linear, structured, understood, step one, step two, step three kind of formula. But why the sun shines, the wind blows, and the grass grows is still trying to be figured out. Science has not even proven that. And how are we flying at a bazillion miles an hour through the atmosphere in some kind of orchestrated way that nothing's colliding into us, or although it has collided into us, but I mean, we are at the sudden destruction of where we're at now. And how does gravity work? Like all these different things. There's such a thing where you can have and both. We can have unknown and certainty at the same time. And our brain struggles because we want to have the controllable. We want to have the certainty. And the whole second part of my book, where you have a tagline, says how our quest for certainty is holding us back. Because the very thing we look for is now we have a new president. Now we have another economy. Now we have, conflicts in this part of the world and that part of the world. Now we have all these things, and people want to look at all that and say, my world is going crazy. It's going nuts. And it's like, you have one job, and that's to function as a contributing citizen in the best ways you know in the best ways you know in the place you are. You can't control the things across the world. You can't control the things in government. You can't control. There's very little you can do in that arena. But how do you show up in your power? How do you show up in taking ownership of your light and your love? How can you be a difference right where you're planted? And most people would rather play the victim card, that I'm a victim of the circumstance. I'm a victim of the economy. I'm a victim of the politics. I'm a victim of the, and it's all a bunch of horse shit that keeps you playing small. It allows you to not give yourself permission to be great, permission to step into the dream that your intuition is calling to you in the midnight hour. It says, why won't you come with me? Why won't you do this thing? And you keep making excuses why you can't, why you won't. And that's because you think I must be something different in order to do that thing, because all the other people, they must be different. I mean, look at them. They're different. They've got to be different. They're a unicorn, but not me. But what if you are? 1 in 8 billion, uniquely crafted and created to do the exceedingly abundantly above all you can ask, think, dream, or dare imagine. What if you were? What if you accepted that reality? Could you stand in your confidence of knowing who you are? And most people won't put together the effort, the intention to subject themselves to seeing through a different lens. There's a bit of a soapbox right there. That's what that was, baby.
Oh, it was a good
I'm a
one.
little passionate about
I
this.
know, and I feel it, and it's perfect. It is perfect. It's we're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spent my life with fear as a constant companion. So I've had to learn to live with it like a monster that hangs out with me.
Mm-hmm.
And we're afraid.
Yeah.
And I watch colleagues, I watch friends get more degrees or say I just need to work 12 more years in this job and then I can retire.
Mm-hmm.
And do what?
Yeah.
Can't you I would like to live today. I want to live
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of that. My dad and I were talking not too long ago, and we get into deep discussions, and we joke that I told him, I said we are both infinitely significant and infinitely insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
And when you realize both, you can do anything you want.
Yeah. That's the duality again, right?
You
It's a
just have to,
powerful place to be in that duality and
and
being comfortable there.
yeah, and it doesn't, and it's funny because I do like certainty. Boy, did you, I got called out
Mm,
on that one. I got called
right?
out. And
Yeah.
they're like,
It's
oh,
like
they're like,
we
that's
want,
procrastination. I'm like, I feel seen, thanks.
and like when I'm coaching my clients, the biggest honor and love I can show them is truth.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard for us to give truth to ourselves, right? And that's why I have coaches, is because they shine a mirror in front of me and show me all my stuff, right? And that's how we get better, is we have to invite other people. I heard somebody say once that we all need someone outside ourselves to read the label on our own jar,
Oh, I love that.
because we can't
They
see
can't see
all of
it.
our stuff, our good stuff or our bad stuff, right? And when you live in this ambiguity that we are just talking about, where you have the duality of, it's like the concept of it's all about me, it's nothing about me. Like this world was created for you to excel and to be a gift and to bless you and to be just overwhelmingly awesome for you. And we struggle with that. And then on the other side, we're like, well, none of this is about me. I'm just trudging through the difficulties, just trying to get from day to day, and you just become little Eeyore. The world is hard. It's just tough. And it's like, it's all about perspective. You go and you say, hey, how you doing? And they say, I'm busy. Everybody's fucking busy. Like, I'm so tired of people saying I'm busy. Like, so when I meet somebody, one of my favorite things to say is, hey, what do you love? And they go, what do you mean? What do I love? I thought, open question. What do you love? Well, I love pancakes. Cool. Awesome. I love it. I love pancakes too. I love German. Cool. You love German. Okay, cool, cool. I love science. Cool. You love, like, people don't connect to the fact that you don't have to see through this negative lens. All the world is trying to program us. We're being indoctrinated over and over with negativity. You flip on the news. We just got done with, a political cycle. Of course, that's always the worst of the worst. But then on top of that, just any news is built around agitation. They want to cause the chemicals in your brain to feel attentive and to feel alert. And so they appeal to the fight and flight. And then they hear like sound bites where, it comes with dun 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 dun. And you're like, oh, this just in. Like, those are all mental, psychological triggers to keep us in agitation. You turn on Sports Center, or, like some kind of like ESPN. And even then it's like, well, this coach against that coach, and this person didn't get their contract, and this person wants, they've been cheated, and this person's got injured. And like, it's just news, news, news. It's all negative Nancy. And very few people will like turn off the noise and instead pound their brain with love and life and personal development and affirmations and principles to live by. and transform the way you see yourself, the way you think, the way you operate, the way you process information. Your brain's like this supercomputer, and it's always seeking to validate the zeros and ones. And just like a computer, it will seek for information to validate the zeros and ones. And so in your same life, as you're taking in all this negative stuff or the stories from your past or your relationship with money, your relationship with relationships, the way your parents treated you, the way that that fifth grade school teacher scolded you in front of everyone, or maybe that gym teacher that said that thing that hurts you so deeply, and you've carried that shit your entire life. And every time you step forward, those voices start to ring in your head so loud, and you keep running back to the corner to hide in that thing you called fear. What if instead you gave yourself new stories, take those stories and turn them around into something that's positive and life-giving? And now the supercomputer goes to work to like prove that out. And now, instead of the past where all that negativity would validate with things you would attract or create, relationships, opportunities, experiences, if your belief system was built in the bullshit, you attract and create all the bullshit. I keep dating the same person over and over again, just with a different face. Why do I keep working for the same boss? Why do my finances never get past this level? I keep hitting these plateaus and then I lose it again. What's my problem? Or change the stories. Now all of a sudden you attract or create higher level experiences, opportunities. All those realities start to change. And as you've elevated your belief about self, you start elevating the kind of people you attract around you, the kind of things you expose yourself to, the kind of things you participate in, because you believe and see yourself at a different standard, and you raise your standard to operate at a different energy, a different frequency. And now all of a sudden you have a different impact and as such a different result. But it takes intention, and nobody's teaching this shit. Nobody.
And it does take effort. It takes intention. It takes effort. You know, it takes effort to turn off the news. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even that so much. I was told 3 years ago or so by someone that you just live in a fantasy world. I said, yep, I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news since 2009, since I came home, and half of the stories were my patients in residency.
Yeah.
And I said, I did this once. I don't need to watch it again.
Yeah.
And and one was actually someone who set her spouse on fire.
Mm.
So it was like one of those, like I'd been there, I didn't need to see that twice.
Yeah.
And so, and they said, you live in a fantasy world. Now, this is a relative of mine who
Yeah.
were very close. And since then, they've actually gotten brought into my fantasy world.
Mm. Come on.
They've seen what I've built and what I'm doing,
Mm.
and we don't say that anymore because this is real. And this is what I've
Mm.
created because I'm not living in the other place.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about like even the motivation, like I'm so sorry for the report that you got, right? With your coronary issue and whatever. And now at least you know,
Yeah.
right? You can make different choices. You can now put different things in your mouth, and you can start, taking the things you
Thinking.
need to take, right? And
Yes.
being intentional. And it's one of the things I mentioned this in the book. It's like, why is it always takes something like this to get us to wake up? Nobody's eating healthier than the person who just had a heart attack. They're
Right.
one of my friends, he had a heart attack, and he's like, if it tastes good, I spit it out. That's like this whole premise. And over here in Portugal, like you put food in your mouth and it tastes so different, so much better because it doesn't have the same chemicals. If you don't eat this fruit or veggie in the next 3 days, it starts to go bad because it doesn't have all the preservatives and, all these different things. And you start making these discoveries like, I want to eat more. Oh my God, this is what a radish tastes like. I never cared for radishes. This is amazing, or other fruits and vegetables, whatever. And all of this intention, like myself, I've always tried let me say this differently. I've tried to be an athlete most of my life. I've tried to be in the sport of some sort. But then, I got older and I stopped, like wanting to hurt myself. So I dialed it back, right? And then I got into a gym in my late 40s. I said, well, I'm going to do CrossFit. And then I really hurt myself because I'm a competitive mofo. My wife says I don't have a half-ass button. So I've got knee issues. I did box jumps several times. I've like literal trauma in my shin
Mhm.
from missing my box jumps, elbow issues, shoulder issues, whatever. And so now I'm like, I'm going to be a little bit smarter. So I'm paying a disgusting amount of money to a trainer to just help me shape my body. I show him a picture and it's like, help me look like this. He knows what muscles need to be done in certain operation and order to get those shapes. He knows what nutrition, of which he'll tell you nutrition's priority number one. He'll tell me about rest. Unfortunately, I don't listen to that. I just don't sleep that much. As much as I try, it's really struggled to get past 6.5 hours of sleep. But I try to sleep. And I do all these things. And now all of a sudden, like I was just telling my son today, I'm like, I need some new belts. I've run out of the little holes on the end of my belt. My pants aren't fitting because I'm getting so skinny. And my wife's like, no, don't tell me about your problems about getting skinny. And I'm like, well, no, I mean, I'm putting the work,
You're doing the reps.
right?
You're doing the work. You're being intentional. You're putting money in the bank.
Right. And so to that point, would I have done this by myself? Unequivocally, no. I needed somebody that I had to look into the eyes every morning to whip my ass and show me the path. You're going to do this and you do this. And his name's Caillou. He's from Brazil, but he lives here in Portugal, and he's like the head coach at this gym I go to. And I told him I want to make a shirt for him that says "F you, Caillou," because that's typically the phrase you'll hear roll from my lips, and he'll be like, "All right, I want you to do these lunges. Go there to the other side of the gym and back." And I'm already tanked. It's been leg day, and I'll look at him. I was like, "Fuck you, Caillou. Fuck you." And then I go and I do it. And as I'm doing, I was like, I'm getting stronger. I'm getting better. I'm getting bolder. I'm getting richer. And I'll try and psych myself up as I'm doing them. And I'm dying. I'm like dying. My legs are just burning. And I would never do this for myself, left to my own devices. And so sometimes we need somebody else to show us a different way. And like it's like you knew all these things, and for whatever reason, this was not nearly the motivation. But I guarantee you, you're the first coach I would want to hire under health, because now it's so real and so personal to you. And you're doing all the right things to make amends for all of that. And so I know people who have gone through the stuff are the best people I want to surround myself with. Because the people who have been with the stuff know the struggles, they know the challenges, they know the fears. And to me, they're even more human that way. And to me, that humanity is a superpower. It's not fake. It's not Lambos. It's not, somebody renting jets and getting their picture taken in front to say, look at me. No, it's like the real thing. And so for you, Dr. Mo, like while this feels, like a kick in the nether regions, I think this is just taking you to a whole nother level, more powerful, more present, more passionate, and probably more impactful than ever before.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree, because I've in the fat loss space, which is because it's never been about weight loss ever. And
Mm-hmm.
again, and you want a soapbox. I'm going to try to keep this
Yeah.
box jump real short.
Come on.
Um, but it's never been about weight loss. The weight is a symptom of everything in your head, everything in your life,
Mm-hmm.
period, end of story. And it's never been about weight loss. But that's what it looks like to Medicare or Medicaid in the 1970s when they deemed obesity a cosmetic disease, for example. But now, I mean, I'm 50 years old. I got this test done, and I actually have a plaque in the spot that's called the Widowmaker.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a large plaque. I mean, I don't know, anything there is a little larger than I'd like it to be, but it's, less than 20%. And I decided I have to go public with this because people look at me from the outside. I had someone tell me today, how can your cholesterol be high? I'm like, I grew up in Buffalo, New York. This is
Yeah.
like body by wings, man, inside and out.
Yeah. Tell me.
So, I mean, and that's, and I'm a child of the 70s and 80s.
Hmm.
I'm surprised it's not worse,
Yeah.
to be honest. But
And you
now,
probably know this better than me too. Some of it's hereditary too, and it's not even, the stuff that you're eating. It just is.
and it absolutely can be. Um, but it's a two-hit hypothesis, of course, right? You've got nature and nurture.
Hmm.
It's like if if I'm prone to heart disease, for example, if my cholesterol's been historically since I started getting it tested probably 10 years ago, my LDL, which is the bad cholesterol,
Hmm.
has been around 180. Well, that's what it was when my journey started 2.5 years ago. A year and a half into it, it was 145. Now it's 120. Still not where it needs to be now that I have this diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so now I've started medication because I'd like to be around longer,
Hmm.
and maybe I can do it with diet and exercise. Maybe it is hereditary, but we don't know. And you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing a year, April of 2022. So a year and a half, 2.5 years ago, I was doing an Ironman. I did not finish that one, got two-thirds of the way through it. Doing an Ironman with a lesion that was probably twice the size.
Mm-hmm.
How horrific is that?
Hmm.
Because I looked fine. I didn't look fine on the outside. Okay, that's a total there. I didn't look good inside, outside, none of it.
Yeah.
But I had people even then tell me, "Oh, you're fine. You don't need to lose any weight." I lost 50
Mm.
pounds.
Mm.
Pack a 50-pound suitcase. See what
Yeah.
that feels like. And then take it off the insides. Release it
Hmm.
from your heart. And then I'm going to put this back in your court because here's the important part. Stop taking in shit to your brain.
Hmm.
It's not just your mouth. It has to be what you think, what you
Yep.
say, what you believe.
Yep.
I mean, and I knew that. I couldn't put it completely together
Yeah.
until I had sufficient motivation, apparently.
Come on. Yeah. Truth. And I think, to that point, the motivation is part of it. You go through all of these different seasons of life where different things kind of hit you sideways, and you're like, "Oh, I didn't expect that to happen." Um, I lost my first business because I was in addiction and because I was selfish and a narcissist, and decided I was going to go and cheat on my wife, and turned up blowing up my marriage, blowing up my business, blowing up my sense of self. And a few months later, I'm underneath my Christmas tree contemplating how I'm going to take my life because I was filled with so much shame and so much pain. And yet, what I didn't realize is how much of that was so self inflicted. And there I was underneath my Christmas tree in 2003. And I heard this voice that said, "We're not done here yet." And I decided to stick around and find out what that meant. And so I got into counseling. I started learning about human behavior and psychology and all these different things, which now, all these years later, feel like, ugh, of course, duh, of course, no problem. I get it now. But I didn't have those tools back then. So I can do one of two things. I can beat myself up and say, "You idiot. Why didn't you study this stuff? Why didn't you know this stuff?" And it's like, you don't know until you know. But then thank God I know. And now what am I going to do with it? And now you get to make a new choice and you start to apply. You start to, put this stuff into action. And now when I come through, a client who's dealing with a marriage issue or a personality issue in context of their identity, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Been there, got the t-shirt, and here's what I'm going to prescribe for you. Where do you want to go from here? Because actually, none of it matters. Whatever happened yesterday doesn't mean squat. I don't care where it came from. I don't care what label you want to put upon it. The only thing you have any power over is today. And you said these words, and I'm going to give this to you. Somebody gave it to me. I'm giving it to you. It's not mine, but I'm going to claim it's mine because I quoted him the first couple of times, and I'm not going to quote him anymore. But today is that acronym, the only day actually yours.
Mm.
Because we have no power over the past, we have no power over the future, but how I apply today will influence my future. And if I want to make my future bigger, brighter, and more, the only thing I can do is to sow into today. How am I going to show up today? How am I going to better my life just one little bit more today? What am I going to use as inputs, beliefs? What am I going to feed my brain? What am I going to do for someone else? Not from a codependent, weird way, but just because it's a natural expression of my generosity and my abundance and my overflow. And as I shine my light into the world, then opportunities will present themselves and I'll make this stuff contagious. That's how I want to live my life. I want to live it with that kind of passion. I want to live it with that kind of drive. I want to live it with that kind of limitlessness. And then maybe others will follow. And is that to say that life is easy? Hell no. Does it mean that I don't have challenges? Fuck no. I absolutely have challenges. I look at, different numbers in my bank account. I look at challenges with my kids. I look at challenges with, all the different things around the world. But what happens is none of it becomes personal. The things I'm experiencing are no longer something happening against me. Now it's just happening and I'm observing. And then I get to choose today what I want to do with it. That's the most liberating thing you can possibly do. And it goes back to the duality. It's not about me and it's all about me.
I have so many more things to say. I'm going to say none of them because nothing is more powerful than what you just shared. That we have all of the control and we have none of the control.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to sit in that. You have to sit in that. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for my listeners to hear this. This one has got to, I like have a mental running list of, okay, I've got this person. Everyone needs to hear what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to get this out there because it is so important. So how can people learn what you do, find you? What's the best way?
Yeah, there's not many Angus Nelsons on the planet. So I've tried to scoop up every one of them. In particular, I'd say join me on LinkedIn and or Instagram or my .com. All of those will suffice. Evolve Leadership is a program that I've developed for leaders who want to excel and to evolve in some of the same concepts. And if you want to hear more about the book, follow one of those channels I just gave you. I'm going to be shouting it from the rooftops. It just went to the editor this morning. And so I'll get the next round of edits in just a couple weeks, probably right before Thanksgiving. And then I'll spend that Thanksgiving weekend doing all the edits. And it'll be done on December 15th is our go date. And then we'll release out into the wild in Q1. So it's coming into reality. And this is a book that's been years in the making. And I can tell you, when you write a book like this, the book writes you. Meaning I have never had so many bouts with my own confidence as I have with this book. So many bouts with who am I to write these words? Who am I to make these statements? Who am I to do these things? And through the experience of putting these words on a page and working with my clients and going to all the stuff, I see the mirror put up in front of me. And I realize, who am I not to do this? And I don't care what anybody says. I don't care. I've stopped caring about all the other things as much as I care about, am I being in integrity with what I know myself to be? And I paid somebody to help me get it across the finish line. Because otherwise I would be tweaking with this. I would be procrastinating. I would do all these things. But in my same, expression to you in my gym story, sometimes we need somebody to help us kick our own butts. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the expert at everything. You don't have to do the things that you've put in your head to do. sometimes it's best to ask for help. And that help, you can be more of you.
Thank you. I cannot thank you enough. To the listeners, go find Angus Nelson and find his book and wait with bated breath and with me until that comes out. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much, Dr. Mo.